There's an undeniable power in silence. When you remove yourself from someone's life, it's not just about absence, it's about creating a space that demands reflection. Think about it. When a favorite song stops playing, you notice the silence immediately. It feels jarring, almost unsettling. That's the same effect your absence can have on someone who took your presence for granted. Silence forces them to fill the gap you left. And in that quiet space, they begin to hear the echo of their own actions. When you're always available, always present, people often grow accustomed to you. They start to assume that your time, your energy, your kindness are things they're entitled to. But the moment you step back, the moment you stop showing up for them, they're faced with an undeniable truth: they've lost access to something valuable. That's not about playing games or being cruel. It's about showing, without saying a word, that you are not someone to be overlooked or underestimated. Your silence speaks volumes. It communicates everything you couldn't put into words, and it does so with a kind of clarity that no argument or confrontation could achieve. When you walk away, the noise stops. The excuses, the dismissive comments, the manipulations, all of it falls away. What's left is the undeniable impact of your absence. They have no choice but to sit with it, to face the reality of what it feels like to be without you. This silence is not just for them, it's for you too. In stepping back, you give yourself the gift of peace. You no longer waste energy on trying to explain yourself or fix a situation that doesn't value you. You free yourself from the exhausting cycle of trying to prove your worth to someone who doesn't see it. And in doing so, you regain your power. When someone feels the weight of your absence, it's not because they suddenly care more about you, it's because they care about what they've lost. That's the lesson silence teaches them. It's a mirror reflecting back their own behavior, their own choices, and their own inability to value what was right in front of them. And the best part, you didn't have to say a single word. Your absence alone was enough to speak the truth. Let them hear it. Let them feel it. Silence is not just the absence of noise, it's the presence of clarity. There's a profound strength in choosing self-worth over the need for validation. Many times we find ourselves in situations where we're waiting for someone to acknowledge us, to appreciate our value, to say, "You matter to me." But the truth is, when we seek validation from others, we hand them the power to define our worth. That's a power they were never meant to have. Ghosting isn't about retaliation or playing games. It's about choosing yourself, choosing peace, and saying, "I don't need your approval to know my value." When you step away, you're making a statement that echoes far beyond words. It's not weakness, it's strength. It's telling the world and yourself that your worth isn't tied to someone else's opinion or treatment of you. Too often we cling to relationships or situations hoping that if we just try harder, if we give more, if we explain ourselves one more time, the other person will finally see our value. But here's the reality: if they don't see it now, they won't see it just because you're begging them to. By ghosting, you're not being petty or cruel, you're setting a boundary. You're saying, "I will no longer participate in this cycle where my worth is constantly questioned or ignored." And that boundary is crucial, not just for your peace of mind, but for your growth. When you stop chasing validation, you create space to validate yourself. You remind yourself that you are whole, worthy, and deserving of respect, not because someone else says so, but because you know it in your soul. Here's the beautiful thing about prioritizing your self-worth: it changes the way others see you. When you stop looking for validation, you carry yourself differently. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're enough, and that confidence is magnetic. It's not about arrogance, it's about alignment. People sense it when you respect yourself, and they'll either rise to meet that standard or remove themselves from your life. Either way, you win. In your absence, they're left to grapple with the realization that they didn't value you when they had the chance. And that's a powerful lesson, one they can only learn when you're no longer there to teach it. Your absence forces them to look inward, to confront their own shortcomings, and to question why they didn't see your worth until it was too late. So choose your peace, choose your dignity. Let your silence remind them of the privilege they once had and lost. And remember, your worth isn't something to be proven, it's something to be embraced. Always. There's something profoundly powerful about the concept of unavailability. When you make yourself scarce, you create a dynamic that demands attention and respect. People often fail to appreciate what they have when it's readily available. It's human nature to overlook what's always there, what seems constant and dependable. But when you remove your presence, even for a moment, it forces people to stop and take notice. That's when they realize the significance of what they've lost. Being unavailable doesn't mean being cruel or indifferent. It's about valuing yourself enough to step back and allow others to feel the weight of your absence. I think of it this way: when a priceless painting is displayed in a gallery, it draws admiration and awe because people know it's rare and valuable. If that same painting were hung in every home, seen on every street corner, it would lose its mystique. Its value wouldn't change, but the way people perceive it would. The same principle applies to your presence. When you're always accessible, people can start to take you for granted. They assume you'll always be there, always available to listen, to help, to support. But when you step away, you disrupt that pattern. You remind them without words that your presence is a privilege, not a given. It's in your absence that they begin to see your value more clearly. They start to notice the little things they overlook, the energy you brought, the way you made them feel. Unavailability isn't about playing games, it's about setting boundaries. It's about respecting your time and energy enough to say, I will not be overextended or undervalued. And when you do this, you give people the chance to rise to the occasion. You challenge them to appreciate you in ways they may not have before. But more importantly, you remind yourself of your own worth. There's a certain magnetism that comes with unavailability. It creates intrigue, curiosity, and even regret in those who didn't fully appreciate you. They start to wonder where you've gone, what you're doing, and why you've chosen to step away. This reflection often leads to a deeper understanding of what you brought into their lives. And sometimes it's only in your absence that they truly realize the depth of your impact. So don't be afraid to be unavailable. It's not about rejection. It's about self-preservation and self-respect. By stepping back, you're not only creating space for others to reflect, but also for yourself to grow. Your unavailability speaks volumes, reminding them and yourself that you are valuable, rare, and not to be taken lightly. Sometimes the most profound lessons aren't taught through words, they're learned through absence. When someone takes you for granted, no amount of explaining, pleading, or reasoning can truly make them understand the depth of their actions. It's only when you remove yourself from the equation that they're forced to face the emptiness you leave behind. That silence speaks louder than any argument, louder than any emotional plea. It's in the void that people begin to realize what they've lost. Stepping away isn't an act of revenge, it's an act of clarity. It's giving yourself the freedom to stop explaining your worth to someone who refuses to see it. Because here's the truth: if they don't recognize your value when you're present, they'll never truly appreciate it through words. Absence is the only language they'll understand. When you're no longer available to answer their calls, to show up when they need you, or to fill the gaps in their lives, it forces them to confront the reality of what you brought to the table. The human heart often learns through contrast. People can't understand the warmth of the sun without experiencing the coldness of shade. In the same way, they can't fully grasp the depth of your kindness, love, or support until it's no longer there. By stepping back, you create that contrast. You give them the space to feel the weight of your absence, to experience the void of what they once had. And that void can be an awakening, a stark realization of how much they relied on you, how much they took for granted. But stepping away isn't just about teaching them a lesson, it's also about protecting your peace. There's power in walking away from situations where your value isn't seen. It's a statement to yourself that you will not shrink or beg for recognition. You will not fight for a space in someone's life where you should already belong. By walking away, you're reclaiming your energy and redirecting it toward those who truly appreciate and cherish you. In your absence, they're left to reflect not just on you, but on themselves. They begin to question their own actions, their choices, and their inability to value when they had the chance. That reflection can be uncomfortable for them, but it's necessary. It's through that discomfort that they learn, that they grow, and sometimes it's what pushes them to make changes. Your absence isn't just a void, it's a mirror. It forces people to see themselves and their behavior in a way they couldn't when you were there. It's not about hurting them. It's about healing yourself and creating a dynamic where you value for who you are. And if they can't see that, then your absence isn't just their punishment, it's your liberation. The most overlooked power move in any relationship is the power of distance. When you pull back, you allow people to feel the reality of your absence. There's no clearer way to show someone their behavior has consequences than by removing the comfort of your presence. When you step away, you create a ripple effect. Suddenly, they're left to sit with their thoughts, their actions, in the empty space you once filled. That absence is felt in ways that words could never convey. You see, when you're always there, readily available, people can develop a false sense of permanence. They assume you'll always pick up the phone, always show up, always forgive without a second thought. But when you withdraw, it disrupts that pattern. It forces them to realize that you're not a guarantee, you're a choice. And your absence reminds them that your presence is a privilege, not something to be taken lightly. Distance has a way of making people confront their feelings. It brings clarity. When you're no longer accessible, they begin to notice the things they ignored, the little ways you brought joy, the quiet support you offered, the energy you contributed to their life. It's in your absence that they feel the impact of your presence. They start to ask themselves questions they never considered before. Why do I miss them so much? What did I overlook? How did I take them for granted? But here's the thing, creating that distance isn't about manipulating them into missing you. It's about giving yourself space to breathe, to reclaim your energy, and to protect your peace. Sometimes the best way to regain control of a situation is to simply step out of it. Your absence doesn't just teach them a lesson, it also serves as a reminder to yourself of your own value. It's a way of saying, I deserve to be appreciated, not just tolerated. When you create that space, you're not just giving them a chance to reflect, you're giving yourself the freedom to grow. Distance allows you to see things more clearly too. It gives you perspective on what you truly deserve and whether the relationship or connection is worth continuing. Sometimes their reaction to your absence reveals everything you need to know. And if they don't notice, if your absence doesn't move them, then you have your answer. It's not your job to force someone to see your worth. Your job is to honor it, to protect it, and to surround yourself with people who don't need to lose you to realize your value. Because when you step away, you're not just teaching them something, you're making a statement about who you are and what you're worth. When you choose to walk away, it's not just about removing yourself physically, it's about reclaiming your emotional energy. Every interaction, every connection requires energy. And when you're pouring that energy into someone who doesn't value it, it's like filling a cup with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much you give, it's never enough because the value isn't being reciprocated. But when you step back, you take control of that energy and redirect it toward yourself and the things that truly matter. The beauty of absence is that it doesn't just create space for them to reflect, it creates space for you to heal. Often we stay in situations or relationships far past their expiration date, hoping that one more conversation, one more chance, or one more chance, or one more act of kindness will change the dynamic. But the truth is, change rarely comes from holding on. It comes from letting go. And when you let go, you're not just giving them room to realize what they've lost, you're giving yourself room to find what you truly deserve. Pulling back allows you to see the situation for what it really is. Without the noise of constant interaction, you can finally hear your own thoughts, feel your own emotions, and understand your own needs. It's in that silence, in that space, that clarity comes. And with clarity, you can start to see the patterns, the ways you've been overextending, the ways they've been taken without giving, and the ways you've been compromising your own peace for the sake of keeping the connection alive. There's power in preserving your peace. When you step away, you protect your heart from further harm. You're no longer giving someone the opportunity to chip away at your self-worth, to test your boundaries, or to diminish your value. Instead, you're taking a stand for yourself. You're saying, I will no longer give my energy to someone who doesn't respect it. And that statement is not just for them, it's for you. It's a reminder of your own strength, your own resilience, and your own worth. And here's what's remarkable. When you protect your peace, it radiates. People sense it. They see the way you carry yourself differently, the way you're no longer weighed down by their negativity or indifference. That energy shift often speaks louder than any words could. It's not about punishing them, it's about honoring yourself. And in honoring yourself, you inspire others to do the same. When you choose to step back, it's not an act of weakness, it's an act of courage. It takes strength to recognize when it's time to walk away, to prioritize your well-being, and to trust that your absence will speak volumes. And in that space you create, you find not just healing, but a deeper connection to your own worth. When you choose silence, it becomes your loudest statement. Words can sometimes be tangled with emotion, misinterpreted or dismissed, but your absence, that is undeniable. It's a profound message that requires no explanation. In your silence, you allow the other person to confront the void you leave behind. You strip away the distractions, the justifications, and the noise. What remains is a stark, unfiltered truth. You were there, and now you're not. Silence holds a mirror up to people. It forces them to face their own actions, their own choices, and the way they've contributed to the current situation. It's in this space of quiet that they begin to see what your presence truly meant. They begin to notice the small, thoughtful things you did, the support you gave, and the light you brought into their life. And as they sit with that silence, they feel the weight of what they may have taken for granted. But the beauty of silence is that it doesn't just work on them, it works on you. In the absence of constant back and forth, you gain clarity. You begin to see the patterns, the red flags you may have overlooked, and the ways you were bending to accommodate someone who wasn't meeting you halfway. That silence is where you reconnect with your intuition, where you listen to your own voice and realize what it's been trying to tell you all along. Choosing silence doesn't mean you're avoiding the issue. Quite the opposite, it means you're addressing it in the most impactful way. You're saying, I've said all I need to say, and now it's up to you to reflect. It's not about proving a point or seeking revenge. It's about creating the space for growth, both theirs and yours. Sometimes people need to feel the absence of your words to truly understand their power. And let's be clear, silence is not weakness, it's not giving up. It's a strategic and intentional choice. It shows strength, discipline, and self-respect. It says, I'm no longer engaging in a dynamic that doesn't serve me. And in making that choice, you set a standard not just for them, but for yourself. You remind yourself that your peace is worth protecting and that not every battle needs to be fought with words. Your silence can create a shift. It can inspire self-awareness, accountability, and change. But even if it doesn't, you've still won because you've chosen yourself. You've chosen to step out of the noise and into your own power. And in doing so, you've made a statement louder than words ever could. When you choose to go someone, it's not about running away or avoiding confrontation. It's about taking control of your own emotional well-being. We've all been in situations where we've given more than we've received, where we've invested in a relationship that's one-sided, or where we've tolerated disrespect because we didn't want to make waves. But at some point, you reach a breaking point. You realize that staying, that continuing to engage only perpetuates the cycle. And that's when you understand that walking away is not just an option, it's a necessity. Ghosting is a powerful form of self-respect. It's the act of reclaiming your peace, your time, and your energy. It's acknowledging that you deserve more than to be treated like an afterthought or a backup plan. By disappearing, you are sending a message to the person who has taken you for granted. You are no longer willing to accept the treatment that you once tolerated. You are no longer willing to sacrifice your happiness for their convenience. And you are no longer willing to remain in the shadows of their inconsistency. It's important to recognize that ghosting is not about punishing someone, it's about protecting yourself. You're not trying to hurt the other person, you're just removing yourself from a toxic dynamic that doesn't serve your growth. When you remove yourself from the situation, you stop giving them the power to dictate your emotions, your actions, or your sense of self-worth. It's a reclaiming of your sovereignty. Now, this isn't to say that ghosting is always the best approach. There are times when communication is key, when expressing how you feel and setting boundaries is necessary for closure. But in cases where your emotional needs are being ignored, where your presence isn't appreciated, and where every attempt at communication has been dismissed, ghosting becomes a way to protect your heart and mind from further harm. In these instances, it's not just your right to disappear, it's your responsibility to do so. You owe it to yourself to step away from anything or anyone that dims your light. Moreover, ghosting allows you to set an example. When you make the difficult choice to walk away, you show others that you will no longer accept unhealthy behaviors, toxic relationships, or one-sided dynamics. You make it clear that your time and energy are valuable. And in doing so, you empower yourself and encourage others to do the same. It sends a message that self-respect and emotional boundaries are non-negotiable. While it may feel uncomfortable or even selfish in the moment, ghosting is often the most self-loving thing you can do. It's a declaration that your peace is worth more than the drama, the gains, or the uncertainty. And once you make the decision to step back, you'll find that the space you create is not just for them to reflect, it's for you to rediscover your own sense of peace and power. And in that newfound clarity, you'll realize that walking away is one of the most empowering choices you can make for yourself. There's something incredibly powerful about knowing when to walk away. It's a sign of strength, not weakness. When you choose to cut off someone who has shown you time and time again that they don't value you. For so long, we're conditioned to believe that love, friendship, or connection is something we must fight for. But sometimes the real fight is knowing when to let go. Where you stop begging for attention, for affection, or for validation, you allow yourself to reclaim your dignity and self-worth. It's often said that silence speaks louder than words. And when you ghost someone, your absence sends the strongest message. You stop chasing, stop explaining, stop trying to convince them of your worth. You let your absence do the talking, and in doing so, you show them what life is like without your energy, without your presence. This is the moment they begin to realize that you were never the problem. You were just the one giving more than they were willing to offer. And now that you're gone, they start to feel the weight of their actions. But understand, this isn't about seeking revenge. It's not about making them feel bad or trying to punish them for their mistakes. It's about acknowledging your value. By ghosting them, you are telling the world and yourself that you will not settle for less than what you deserve. It's not about seeking approval from others. It's about standing firm in your own worth. You remove yourself from the situation, not because you want to hurt them, but because you know that staying would only keep you trapped in a cycle of disappointment and self-doubt. When you decide to walk away, you also take a step towards your own growth. You stop letting the past dictate your future, and you create space for something better to come into your life. You stop waiting for them to come around, and you stop giving them the power to control your emotions. This is the point where you learn that your happiness doesn't depend on their approval or attention. You take control of your own happiness, and you realize that without them, you're actually stronger, more resilient, and more whole. But don't mistake this for an easy decision. Walking away, especially when you've invested so much, can feel heartbreaking. It's not easy to let go of someone, especially when you've envisioned a future with them. But the real heartbreak comes from staying in something that isn't working, from holding on to someone who can't see your worth. When you ghost them, it's not about giving up. It's about recognizing that you deserve someone who sees you, values you, and respects you from the start. You choose to believe that there is someone out there who will meet you where you are, who will give you the respect, love, and effort you deserve without having to beg for it. Ultimately, ghosting isn't about revenge, and it's not about making the other person suffer. It's about empowering yourself. It's about sending a message that you won't settle for less. And it's about showing them and yourself that you have the strength to walk away and the courage to stay true to your worth. When you decide to ghost someone, it's not about escaping the discomfort of confrontation or seeking attention. It's about asserting your boundaries, protecting your peace, and prioritizing your well-being. In a world where we are often told to keep giving, to stay in relationships that don't serve us, and to sacrifice our own happiness for others, ghosting is a powerful act of self-preservation. It may feel harsh at first, but it's actually one of the most loving things you can do for yourself. It's a refusal to accept anything that doesn't align with your highest good. One of the most profound realizations you'll have when you ghost someone is the understanding of just how much energy you were giving away, how much of yourself you were losing. It's easy to become consumed by the need to please others, to be the one always reaching out, always making the effort. But in doing so, you neglect your own needs, your own dreams, your own desires. Ghosting is about recognizing your own value and stepping back to protect what's yours. You begin to realize that your time, your emotions, and your energy are precious, and they should be spent on people and things that lift you up, not drain you. When you ghost someone, you take control of the narrative. Instead of waiting for their approval, validation, or love, you decide to create your own narrative. This is a message to the world that you will no longer be manipulated or treated as an option. You are no one's second choice. You are not here to be used when convenient. And that level of self-respect is something that only you can cultivate. Ghosting isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign that you respect yourself enough to not tolerate being treated less than you deserve. It's easy to stay in unhealthy relationships because we fear the consequences of leaving. We worry about the reactions, the judgments, and the hurt feelings. But the truth is, when you ghost someone, you make a bold statement about the power you have over your own life. You give yourself permission to step away from situations that no longer serve you. And you stop allowing someone else's behavior to dictate your mood or your future. The absence you create is not about causing harm. It's about showing up for yourself in the most powerful way possible. The beauty of ghosting is that it is an opportunity for growth. Once you walk away, you make space for new experiences, new connections, and new possibilities. The people who respect you, who value you, and who genuinely want to be a part of your life will find their way to you naturally. You create space for more meaningful relationships to enter your life because you've cleared out the ones that were holding you back. This is the true power of ghosting. It's not about running from problems, it's about running toward your best self. In the end, ghosting isn't about ignoring or avoiding confrontation. It's about choosing your peace over the chaos of one-sided relationships. It's about recognizing that you deserve more than just the scraps others are willing to give. And most importantly, it's about loving yourself enough to walk away from anyone or anything that doesn't honor your worth. It's not always easy, but the moment you realize that your absence is a powerful form of punishment for those who took you for granted, you'll see just how much strength lies in silence. And in that silence, you'll find the space to thrive, to heal, and to become the best version of yourself.